being out there on the big stage. A huge golfing experience in that regard between him and Shaw. But as you say, Scott, didn't really seem to faze him at all. If anything, it brought out the best in him.
That's exactly
Certainly produced real fighting qualities from him, having been so far behind in the match. He can take that experience into this clash today. Fedor Gorst, even for all he's achieved in the game, yes, he's got more experience than Pecelj of playing in this sort of setting, but perhaps quite not as much of a gap as you might think, because in terms of big calendar of Matchroom events of this nature over the last few years, he's missed a lot of them. Hasn't been to the later stages of that many. So that's the background. This is the opening rack.
Jeremy Jones, how are you doing?
I'm good. Super excited. Even though short sleep a little bit, or could have used a little more. It was easy to wake up on our final day.
I think we've got the best seat in the house, don't we? And he's forced to push here, but this young man jumps so well, you could almost not fault him for taking it on with where the position of the 3 is.
Yeah, I think you may see him roll out to a jump, but maybe not take on this one, just because it's early. You know, you want to get a little feel of what's going on, how your opponent's going, and that happens a lot early in these matches, especially when there's something tactically to start.
Both of these players, 23 years of age. Aleksa Pecelj is number 25 in the world. That's an improvement of 12 spots since the beginning of 2023.
And, you know, these players are always working on their physical, right? But, of course, the mental as well. But that's the big change I see with Aleksa. Just seems very confident, staying within himself and not paying attention to too much of anything else besides Aleksa Pecelj.
Kind of alluded on that yesterday, Jeremy, with Michael here. Being down 6-2 versus Jason Shaw and handling this situation in this type of arena under the lights, I was highly impressed. I felt like this young man is very mature in his pool game.
Okay, it looks like he's going to try and run the cue ball. The 8 is a big ball to get by. Oh, he went for the cut. What a shot. He's going to go into the 7. Well, that's got to be a good feeling, you know, to start the match.
What a hit this is.
And sometimes the layout, and that's why your decisions are so important, because right there the safety was tough with the 8 there. To get the snooker. So of course making a good decision can sometimes lead you, you know, into a good ball, you know, stroke and a nice ball to get down.
Yeah, and we were talking about this yesterday, Jeremy. These first few balls, it might not seem a lot to our viewers, but the first few balls in any of the first games of these matches are very important to these guys. It strikes the momentum the correct way, or it can set it backwards. So it all makes a big difference on what happens here for Fedor Gorst.
Gorst is marginally the younger of the two by just a few months. He's also 23, number 8 in the world rankings.
Were you a little bit surprised at how he came out forward versus punch?
Well, I think that was an option always. And there was a big 3 ball he missed yesterday, really to open up the door a little bit more. And he kind of punched it. Again, I think he's trying to settle in a little bit, Scott.
Sure.
You know, I think you may see something different later in the match in that kind of position.
Very good point. Makes sense.
Now, one thing both these players, no matter what the score is or how this develops, they both broke the balls very well, so I don't think there's any score that's totally protected.
Yeah, we witnessed that, yesterday versus Jason Shaw.
This got to go a little bit. This could get awkward because you're kind of going across where the 9's at. You don't really want to bump the 9 here. Not saying it's terrible to do so. But
no, can you go 3 rails past it, or do you just play the bump?
You can go 3 rails past, but that makes it a missable ball. It'd be more like 2 rails, I think,
Right.
just out crossing the head string. But I don't mind that light bump because you can really hold the ball.
Well, he's hit it well.
Yeah, but it could get awkward, though, see? So, but I think simplifying the 8 is the correct position there, especially like we said earlier, early in the match.
Yeah, I agree. I think he wants to just make sure he puts it down and takes what he has on the black and yellow 9.
Played a nice popped and positional shot to get in there. Had questions to answer on the 8 and the 9, but came up with the goods on both. Fedor Gorst 1-0 up in this US Open semi-final. It's early in the day here in Atlantic City, and the crowd will steadily build as it goes on. 3 matches, all on this table. We've got the semi-finals back-to-back, and then the final a few hours after that. Fedor Gorst has won all his matches, didn't have to go to the loser's side. Started off with comfortable wins over young Americans Sam Henderson and Payne McBride. Another US opponent then in winners qualification, Nicolas de Leon, who perhaps pushed him harder than anyone else has this week. That one finishing 9-7. And then once Gorst got into single elimination, he beat the former US Mosconi Cup player Billy Thorpe 10-4, so another American opponent seen off. Beat Sanjin Pelovanovic, who was playing really well, 10-6. Great match against former US Open champion Carlo Biado yesterday, and then Robbie Capito of Hong Kong, who was in uncharted territory later in the day. Both of those matches 10-7. And he leads 1-0 here.
Oh, he doesn't miss the one very often, so. And again, like I said in the opening, you can't be stubborn if they break a little funny. But I think you got to give it a chance for a few racks from where you've had success all week.
Yeah, and I heard you say that out there in the arena, Jeremy, and I totally agree because he's had a lot of success on this table with the 1 in the side. So, you know, maybe he hit him a hair heavy, and it's what it looks like catching the top side of that side pocket. So here's our first opportunity to see Aleksa perform. He doesn't seem to be fazed by anything.
The referee calling for phones to be switched off just underlines the difference between this single table stage and the more open, noisy environment of the earlier rounds.
Yeah, he knew it was touchy to get the snooker, but he really couldn't push out considering all that congestion. Just it's either going to be a terrible push out where he gets it back, or it's going to be something that he'll never get back. And you don't want those extremes. You always want your opponent on the fence when you're pushing out, like, oh, do I take it? What are they going to do and whatnot?
Yeah, I love that. That's an excellent point, especially in this situation. Better to be safe than sorry. Yes, Fedor has a look at the 1 ball, but what does he do, Jeremy?
I don't know. This is touchy. At least Aleksa got the cue ball to the back rail somewhat.
Does he have a 2-way play here? Can he play it to the side and over? Not really. You can't get the 1 away, can you?
Well, he can't get to the right part of the 1 either. That's the real problem. So that gives us a good look. He's pretty limited on options. And that's why he just said, I'm going to try and get some separation, see what happens. And you said, Michael, a few seats open, but it is a sellout crowd today. It was just Friday night in Atlantic City last night for a few of them, and you can't blame them. Probably enjoying themselves.
I saw a lot of bleary eyes and clearly sore heads around the place this morning. So they'll all be here as the day goes on.
Okay, big part of our game now. And Aleksa, very good. Most consider Fedor Gorst the best jumper in the world.
Yeah, and I feel, Jeremy, that Fedor's actually raised the bar, and I know you'll agree with me on that. These other top players have noticed how accurate he is, and all of a sudden these other top players have also become very accurate.
Yeah, I think it's putting in the time, and the technique has changed a little bit with the jumping, with the equipment getting so good. It's a little more wrist action at impact, more than power.
Yeah.
Talk about power. What a shot. And that's the simple beauty of 9-ball compared to other cue sports, is the aggression in the game.
Yeah, and notice how he is not over-elevated. That's really how he gets the power.
I think there was enough power in there to satisfy the energy needs of all of Serbia for a weekend.
Good call there.
And he, just like yesterday, you know, more yesterday, it was like some kick shots. I don't know if you remember the ball he kicked in at a crucial time. I think that's a real good play there. He couldn't go anywhere forward, right, because of 7, so he's going to be straight on the 3 if he plays it up table. Now he has a little angle and he can work the cue ball.
Yeah, but he might have to come back and forth, Jeremy. It looks like he's got to have real good speed on this hit.
Well, this is one of the shots you have to have in your game from all positions, back and forth with the cue ball. He's close to it here, so it shouldn't be a problem.
He's done well.
Just a little wake-up call for, I think, the crowd, myself a little bit with the jump shot, and Fedor Gorst.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it.
And the comeback, to me, was pretty incredible yesterday, considering everything that was happening in the moment and the setting and for Aleksa. But to me, the most impressive, win or lose, is how he hit the ball. He hit it better and better and better as that comeback. You know, because it's kind of like when you have a big lead, you can stumble, you know, and when you're making a comeback, that pressure builds.
Absolutely.
And it's almost like we see a big blunder more often as a comeback's made.
Yeah, and that's why I believe this young man's a natural star. He's a gifted player. He's got the look for television, and he seems like he just gets better as it goes.
In that match against Shaw yesterday, the Scot looked so focused and mentally sharp in the early stages, and it was a real tribute to the pressure he was put under by Pecelj that seemed to lose a lot of that composure towards the end.
Yeah, Michael, I totally agree. I think when Shaw was up 6-2, there was a lot of people in this arena that were thinking Jason Shaw might win this U.S. Open. If not, he looks like a small favorite. And then all of a sudden.
Yeah, Shaw's defeat means we will have a new winner of the U.S. Open today. He was the last remaining player who had won it before.
Yeah, and if you watch Jason in his chair yesterday, which is a lot of it towards the end of that match, he didn't look frustrated. He just looked like someone that got beat down a little bit, and
Aleksa Pecelj
got the wins. The sails knocked out.
So 1-1 in the early stages of this semi-final, in which we've moved up now to race to 11. Aleksa Pecelj did have to go to the one-loss side. He won his first match easily against Barry West Jr., 9-1, but then lost to Kang Lee, who we saw playing for South Korea at the World Cup of Pool in Spain over the summer. So needed 3 wins on the loser's side. The first of them was very straightforward against 68-year-old Edward Epperson. Didn't lose a rack in that. Babken Melkonyan, the steadily improving Romanian, pushed him much harder then to 8-6. And another close one then in losers qualifying against the experienced Estonian player Dennis Graba. Pecelj won 9-7. And then into single elimination yesterday. Wins over Imran Majid, the British veteran, 10-3. Pong Nam Pham of Vietnam.
Thank you.
Gave him a good contest. That was 10-7. Produced
The third
perhaps
rack,
the best performance we've
Aleksa
seen from
Pecelj,
anyone
break,
all week
1 rack each.
in a 10-1 win over the former champion Ralph Suke. And then that remarkable 10-7 win from 6-2 down against Shaw last night. 1-1 here.
Jeremy, notice how centered his cue ball is there on that break. I don't see that a lot in this tournament.
No, but I've seen it more in the last few tournaments, and it's smart. I mean, that means you're putting in time trying to find things out. I think in this tournament, this break format, you have to really be prepared with 2 or 3 different breaks. And like I tell the guys, I was like, you have to constantly be trying to develop the hard break.
Okay, let me ask you this, Jeremy. Is he catching more of the 1 ball? Is that allowing him to catch a little more of the 1 ball by putting it in the center? More towards the center?
Well, the math to me would be yes, because he's coming from the center, so he's not putting as much pressure on the 1 while still being able to hit it a little thicker.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah, and it almost proves with the cue ball path that it's
Right.
not that thin. All right, big shot. This is the type that's missable, the heavy stun. Oh, that was clean.
Very clean. just don't sense that there's any waiver in this young man.
Well, that's it, isn't it? We see so many players who go out onto the main stage, play under the lights, and they just turn out to be a shadow of the player we know they really are. And then occasionally you get someone who isn't used to this environment, but goes out to play in it and seems to absolutely thrive on it and become a better player. The indications over the last couple of days are that Pecelj falls into that category. He was having a conversation there with Desi Boshalova. I think he was perhaps calling the extension and was informed that the shot clock has been dropped for this rack because of technical difficulties.
Can he avoid traffic here,
He
Jeremy?
might bump the 6 off the rail. That's the only one I see. Oh, and that's what I was talking about yesterday, how well he was cueing, and he was getting so much out of the ball towards the end of the match. But, you know, I always say it that, you know, nerves usually brings out extremes one way or another.
It's a little flat here, Jeremy.
Yeah, it's a little flat for sure, and he may have to play from underneath.
And for the
I
folks,
think he can draw back, Scott, and play the 8 in the same pocket, to be fair.
yeah, I think it's possible, but it's a little touchy. He doesn't want to be too low. He doesn't want to get too high, obviously. And just for the folks at home, this table is very tight, so straight in actually means something.
Yeah, he's going to draw back trying to play it. But what I was going to say is, you know, sometimes when the nerves are high and you're very prepared, that makes you do great things, really.
It just seems to me like he's picking up right where he left off, and mentally, that's probably what his goal was all night long.
So having drawn level by taking rack 2, Aleksa Pecelj got the break for the first time in the match. From there, he's run out. Pecelj leads for the first time at 2-1. 56 from all around the world for the inaugural Hanoi Open. Sky Sports coverage will join in from the last 16. 5 a.m. on the 14th of October is the time to be up for. It isn't actually the biggest city in terms of population in Vietnam, JJ, but as you pointed out yesterday, with the ticket sales we're hearing about for that week,
Aleksa Pecelj
it might be.
Break, leading by 2 racks to 1.
Yeah, I really can't wait, Michael. And been to Southeast Asia, but never Vietnam. And of course, always Vietnamese, lovely people.
2-1 to Aleksa Pecelj.
And that's another thing I saw yesterday, is he started to hit the break a little harder as it went on as well.
Yeah, it looks like he's got a much better spread right here, actually, than he's had in the previous game. I can't get over, guys, about the long-distance power jump, threading the needle for position, running out, and then following it up with the next rack. What message does that send to young Fedor Gorst?
Well, I think that's what I was talking about earlier, feeling things out, and sometimes it doesn't take long to realize where you're at. And Fedor's been there before, so big shot. This ball's going to fall a little bit with the speed he's going to put on it. So does he get by the 4? Oh, he hit it so clean. See how well it held its line? That's when you know the stroke is at its best. The cue ball didn't really arc.
He had zero body movement there either. Zero body movement.
And he's underlining once again in the early stages of this match that mental strength you were talking about. He was aware of it a couple of years ago that he needed to work on that side of his game if he wanted to move up to the next level. And then broke his leg, fell down some stairs at a tournament and was laid up for 4 months and decided to use the time constructively. Spent those 4 months reading up about sports psychology and feels that's really helped to make him the much more consistent player he's become in 2023.
Well, I think, you know, the difference I see compared to some others that aren't used to this situation, and I'm talking about some big names and names that are coming along, is you tend to see him stress a lot every shot, and you just don't feel that out there. He's just working. He's just putting in the work.
That's something I've learned from you working with you, Jeremy, is listening to you, and you talk a lot about stressing over position. Don't overstress your position. Just make it work.
Yeah, he's feeling good. He's maybe want to get a few inches closer to that 7. It's interesting for our next semifinal. I made a mistake in the opening, saying that both players in our next final hadn't played a match on this table, but actually Ko Ping Chung played Lechner yesterday. So a little interesting that Yap is the only one out of our final 4 that hasn't had time.
Guess that just reflects that he's by far the lowest ranked of the 4. These things are taken into account. Also, of course, the fact that Pecelj happened to come up against one of the very highest ranked players.
Yeah, and they were just maybe just simply at the top of the draw, and you know, there's all kinds of little combinations, but that won't affect Yap. He was, a couple years ago, he was in this final, so things won't be so foreign for him.
Yeah, and he's been a finalist in the World Cup of Pool just last year
Extension,
as well.
please.
So plenty of relevant experience. This man, not so, but he's playing as if he's been out on this stage for years.
Yeah, and you tend to wonder how long it's going to be before Fedor gets back to the table.
Absolutely, he can do nothing about it at the moment.
Aleksa Pecelj
Another
wins the rack.
ideal rack for Aleksa Pecelj. Gives himself a little nod of approval, and he's 2 clear now at 3-1. Scott, it's been great to have you joining us on the commentary team the last couple of days. You played in the US Open. Just tell people at home a bit about your own background in the game and your own playing career.
I actually grew up with the man to the left of me, Jeremy Jones. He was just a fraction older than I was, so I kind of looked up to Jeremy. But grew up playing rotation games and then kind of transformed into one pocket due to the financial side of it. There was a lot of money back then in one pocket. You could make it on the road. We didn't have internet. Yeah, that tells you how old I am. We didn't have internet, operated by phone book. And then I transformed into a professional player, winning pretty much every major title in that sport. Coming to this event, I've been nothing but highly impressed. It's the most professional event in the world, and it's the best thing that America has going for it. I'm very excited for Matchroom and the future of the United States in professional pool.
And you know, we were talking there about Barry Berman and his legacy at the start of the program, and it stretches far beyond the US Open, because all these other wonderful events we go to now, the Spanish, the European, the UK, we've got Hanoi coming up the week after next, they're all modeled on this.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I think there's always going to be tweaking. That's the good thing. Matchroom's always looking to improve things in the World 9-Ball Tour, and real open-minded to the players and their concerns. And, you know, you talk about it. It's easy for these players to get in the zone because I see them more as colleagues than I ever have when it comes to professional pool. I think before, you know, there were so few tournaments, it became a little personal at times, you know. But now the doors have opened, and the players are really in a good position.
Rack 5.
Great point,
Aleksa
Jeremy.
Pecelj break.
What we've seen throughout 2023 is so many players stepping up and having their moment, perhaps names we wouldn't have expected to. Aleksa Pecelj may well be having his big moment here. He's off to a great start.
Watch the cue ball.
Yeah, but he's getting a lot of shots. He's gotten a lot of shots all week. And, of course, like FSR for about a year and a half, it seemed, got a lot of shots after their break. But you have to take advantage and keep executing.
Yeah, this net lays quite natural, Jeremy, I believe.
Yeah, the only thing is, no, he's thick enough on the 2. He can't get above the 3 to get to the 4. The 6 will be impeding the path of the cue ball, and he doesn't want to lay on the rail. So this shot could get a little away. I like what he's doing here, looking at the 3-6.
Yeah, where would you get to play the 3-6?
Middle of the table, I think.
Okay, I was curious.
Yeah, I
if
think
the
just
9 was in the way.
I think you can go 2 rails and get to the middle pretty easily. That gets you still a look at the 3.
Yeah, I don't mind it at all. I guess this is preference, right? Depends on how you feel when you get down on the ball. If you feel like you're going to land real nice on the 3, you can go that way. Otherwise, come all the way around. And he felt nice landing on the 3, but he's come up a little short.
I think he's real good, actually. He's off the rail. He's close. He's got a nice angle. This is the one thing about the slick table. You can overcome heavy angles if you're close to it with a little tip position, like, you know, a little draw.
Sure.
You're going to move towards the 4, but also slow the cue ball down.
And I was misled. I think he does have a very good angle now to get to the pink 4. Everything he hits is clean.
Yeah, he's got a very straight stroke, and the timing seems to be better and better.
As if the incentive of winning the US Open wasn't enough, there's another big prize on the line for Pecelj today, because the second automatic spot on the European Mosconi Cup team will be confirmed tonight. Francisco Sanchez Ruiz is already in, because he was top of the table after the European Open. The highest placed player other than FSR at the end of this will claim the second spot. And if Pecelj wins the title, that'll be him.
Well, I mean, you know, talk about a captain, you always want those problems. Someone coming off the U.S. Open, and there's a look at Team Europe's captain for 2023 and the 30th anniversary of the Mosconi Cup.
Yeah, Ralph Eckert will be in charge of the team for the first time, up against you at your 4th go, Jeremy.
Okay. Wants to pull this tightly, right?
You don't want to let up on this, correct?
Yeah, and this is, again, if you know the slick table, you can get into it pretty well. The second rail, it should start to slow down. So, like Scott said, don't let up. Go ahead and know it's not going to get away.
He looks awful good to me, guys. He looks awful good.
Talk about it all the time. You really never know in sport when one of those younger players are going to turn a big corner. And, you know, it's especially in our sport, or our type of sports, you know. Other sports, some physical prowess and, you know, just you can see raw talent in certain ways, but it takes a severe combination of mental strength and a lot of physical dedication.
It's a formula Pecelj seems to have found very well. And really, you just can't play any better than this. Gorst going to be frozen out for another rack.
Sorry, Michael. I don't think you can, and this leads back to the initial jump shot that he had with threading the needle in that position.
And boy, has he built on it. 4 in a row for Aleksa Pecelj. He's pulling away from Fedor Gorst here. It's 4-1.
And I think the youngsters gaining more fans every rack, including that match from yesterday.
Well, he's just wonderful for the sport. When you speak to him, he's just so pleasant and friendly. Always looking for marketable new stars in any sport. But I think it applies to both of these guys. Gorst just isn't getting much of a chance to show at the moment what he can do. These are the highlights of the rack we've just seen. So efficient.
Yeah, I mean, kind of read my mind on what I tell people on these slick tables. Well, all tables really, but you can get, you know, if your brain's good, you're keeping decent position, you can get a lot out of medium. You know, and that looks like kind of every stroke looking pretty similar, and you got to love that.
Aleksa Pecelj to break, leading by 4 racks to 1.
This is a great view. And he is catching the one a little more full. Is he going to come away with a shot this time, guys?
Yeah, but nothing easy. And, well, I think he's got a shot.
He does have a shot, but does it carry any type of position?
The 3 may squeeze by the 8, but I mean, if he shoots this, he's probably digging on the cue ball anyways. So.
What do you mean by that, Jeremy? What do you mean by digging?
Well, hitting down on the ball, like he's gonna. You're not gonna roll this ball. I mean, unless the 3's really like hanging somewhere, maybe. But I think if you're gonna attack here, you're probably gonna try and draw the cue ball anyways, or maybe stun over. If the 3 didn't go, that's a good thing that I saw. He doesn't get ahead of himself and say, "Oh, I got a 4-1 lead." The mentality is easy to say, "I have a little room to work with," but it's actually quite the opposite. Is the real mentality you want.
Extension, please.
You know, if the 3 didn't go, I mean, challenge him from the end rail here.
Yeah, I think everything depends on whether the 3 passes the black 8.
Now, the one you don't want to leave is where he can cross this over and get the cue ball behind the pink. You don't mind him banking the 2 across and coming back down. That's going to leave some kicks that are doable and doesn't have to get the snooker. So he definitely hasn't left it to where he can move the cue ball behind the pink. It's got to be crossing the 2 over.
I think that was a pretty mature play. Even if the 3 went with half a pocket, I think that's a pretty mature play.
Absolutely. You can't roll out to where he can cue the ball first off, and you can't roll out for a natural safety.
And Fedor hasn't been at the table, Michael, in what, 4 games, 3.5 games? This is a big opportunity.
Yeah, he might have needed directions to get back to the table. He's been away from it for so long.
Watch the cue ball.
Oh, and he might be away from it for a while longer.
Well, I mean, you know, that's why you talk, you know, people say, oh, these guys can't beat Filler, oh, these guys can't beat that player. You have to continually keep heat on them. You know, you have to let them know you're in the match and you're here to beat them. And then, you know, we all start to get back to realizing they're all human.
Absolutely, Jeremy. And Fedor caught that ball a little bit thicker than he wanted to. And you notice his reaction doesn't speak well.
Yeah, it was a little hard to tell because we were watching from the overhead. This has got to slow down a piece. And it did. But I kind of felt like Fedor decelled a little bit on that shot, and what happens is you can, you know, the ball clings a little bit on contact when you decel, almost like a skid a little bit, and it, you know, you lose the path of the cue ball, and you could see there wasn't a whole lot of speed on that cue ball either. He was trying to get back down table.
Gorst in his chair, cutting a very frustrated figure. It's one of the biggest days of his life so far, a chance to win the US Open, and he's just desperate to get stuck in, but is really being thwarted in these early stages.
Yeah, I think this is the time for Gorst where we should see something special. Is it his time to do what Aleksa did to Jason Shaw yesterday, or does he just continue on this path?
Well, that's when you're in the chair, you can get different feelings of desperation. You know, one of them may be, oh, I made a bunch of mistakes to let this lead go. But the real desperation is this guy going to give me much opportunities? And how well do I have to capitalize with the few he does?
Well said, Jeremy.
All right. Pecelj just pure class so far, Michael.
Yeah, looking absolutely solid in all departments. So after a long time in his chair, Fedor Gorst did finally get back to the table in this rack, but only to come to it. Give ball in hand to Pecelj, and from there, the young man from Serbia has made it to 5-1. He's already almost halfway to a place in the final. first full week of December will bring the Mosconi Cup back to Alexandra Palace. Jeremy Jones and his team, whoever may be on it, will be hoping to bring the trophy itself back to the United States. They last won it in 2019, 3 in a row for Europe since then. And it all starts 6:30 in the evening on the 6th of December. Will that flag be flying high again over London?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Rack 7.
Aleksa Pecelj
break.
may well be there. He'll be on the European team for sure if he wins this US Open today. And he's flying here, 5 in a row to lead 5-1.
Well, he's not going to come out with a shot here, is he, Jeremy?
No, and I thought he was going to get a little cover where the 2 didn't pass the 3, but it does go. So making the push out more difficult. Anytime you have to push out, if you're new to 9-ball, after the break, whether you're the breaker making a ball or coming in off a dry break, the incoming player has the option to push the cue ball out anywhere. They have to declare push out, but then the incoming player has the option to take the shot or pass it back. It's a huge part of 9-ball. It seems like anytime we're hill, it's always a push out situation. So there's a lot of knowledge involved. Excuse me, knowing your opponent a little bit.
And this one's a little tricky. Everything kind of opened up here.
Well, he's rolling out to the jump.
Oh, he's testing Fedor early with the jump. Early meaning early in Fedor's play.
Well, this is where Fedor has to realize I need to take it away. Just like what started this run for Aleksa, knocking in a big shot. And that's where the game's going.
So you believe this is the right shot right now?
I'm not saying necessarily for sure, but I mean, I wouldn't mind him shooting it, to be honest.
Back to Aleksa, please.
I can't blame him for passing this up, Jeremy. I really can't.
I know. It's going to be struck firmly, though, and there's 2 rails in the side. And But the point I have here is, what's my opponent doing right now?
I get it.
And he's doing a lot.
Yeah, he's controlled the table this entire match. Michael's alluded to it, and I think if he does this Fedor will come up with some type of a shot.
Yeah. Well, at least a little control.
He's really gone above that ball. Maybe a little too much power. Lose your accuracy when that happens.
Yeah, the 5 was some distance away, though, and the one thing about it is when you jump the ball, the cue ball's in the air. So almost all jump shots you can aim a little thicker because you hit a little higher on the object ball and it cuts a little easier.
Big moment for Gorst.
Yeah, it was a big 2-ball to get him started in game 1, and now another one in game 7.
He's hit it well. He's got to slow down.
So far for Fedor Gorst, the semifinal has been much more mental than physical.
Well, this has got to slow down too, Jeremy. I think he was a little quick there, it seemed like.
A stretch, yeah. But what I mean by that is watching Aleksa knocking a jump, put some racks together after a dry break as well. So that's a little mental for Fedor, and it's always a little more mental when you're just sitting in your chair for a while.
Yeah.
And now a big long shot.
Yeah, but that's due to, he was pretty much perfect on the 3. It's due to a little quickness in the position on the 4, in my opinion. Seems like his pace around the table is sped up. Sometimes players feel like they have to win all the games they're behind in one shot, and that's not really the case.
Well, he's been put under so much pressure here by his opponent. Put himself under a little more there, going back to that loss of position a couple of shots ago. But that was a fine response. He's restored good position now. And a good chance to finally snap this run. 5 losing racks in a row.
Excellent recovery. Looks like he's going to get out here. and get to game number 2.
Yeah, and even more importantly, the breaking end of the pool table, this winter break format.
So he's going to win the rack, but it really needs to be the start of something, even in a race to 11. The deficit he has is significant, but he's reduced it a little. Aleksa Pecelj now 5-2 in front.
Yeah, the fans are starting to fill the seats. It's a capacity crowd here for our final day at the 46th U.S. Open.
We were talking about this yesterday. You look at the world rankings, FSR is #1, but he's gone off the boil the last few months. Van Boning hasn't had the year that he might have hoped for, and perhaps Gorst could at the moment be considered the best player in the world. I think it would be almost indisputable if he was to win this US Open today. So we talked about that yesterday, Jeremy and I. Scott, what do you think?
I mean, I've been around Federer a lot since he's been in the United States, and as Federer said, he feels like he's been adopted here. I tell you what, I've seen some things from him that blow my mind, and I have kept my eye on these other players such as Filler and the likes of others and Ruiz. I think he definitely is in the argument as top player in the world.
Fedor Gorst break, trailing by 5 racks to 2.
But he's been second best so far in this match.
Notice he's much further out. He missed the one last time to the side pocket. He's put it down this time, Jeremy, and he's got a shot.
Yeah, and usually, you know, if you're not made a ton of mistakes, you know, that scratch on the 2-ball when he crossed it over earlier, you know, that, of course, you got to label that a mistake, but it's not like blatant, you know, like you missed an easy ball or snooker right in front of you. And it was a tough situation, especially after Pecelj, you know, opened up the gap on the games a little bit. Now, all these are super crucial. You got to feel like nothing's different, but you know you can't afford any mistakes.
Yeah, he's got a lot of work to do here, Jeremy.
Talked about him there as potentially the best player in the world. He is 8th, as we were saying earlier, in the world rankings, but that, I think, reflects how many tournaments he's had to miss due to travel issues since the ranking system began at the start of last year. Once you get up to a position as high as that, it's hard, obviously, to move up many more places. You have to do significant things to do it. But what we do know is, if he wins the US Open, he'll be up to #4, and only marginally behind Joshua Filler in 3rd.
I may have just took a peek at the 5-9 off the 8 in the side. The 8's a huge ball.
I agree, and I wonder if he still will. I think he's all the time here had a plan to play the purple 5 in the top left. But I do agree with you there, Jeremy. I was looking at that as well, and it looks really pretty good.
Yeah, you can hit the 8 a number of different ways, and it's just kind of a cupcake in the side. Of course, you have to get position there, and I'm not so sure he's in the greatest spot to do that. It is possible, though. Come all the way across.
Yeah, I think he's overlooked your shot.
But he won't now.
He's not going to anymore.
No, he'll see it now. I mean, I'm not saying he'll shoot it, but if he goes another inch, undoubtedly he shoots it.
Well, the way he walked over to it, I think that maybe I was incorrect there. Maybe he saw it all along and he was just trying to come over more.
Well, he kind of shook his head, knowing Federer. He may have known it was an option, but I think he was trying to draw that position you were talking about. If you notice, he overcut the 4 to the pocket, so that'll make you run the cue ball a little far. Oh, he caught it too thick. He caught the 8 too thick. Did the clock get to him? It was almost like that stroke on the 3 where he kind of overhit it when he was stretched a little.
Did he have an extension available?
No, he's used his already.
Okay. Yeah, I think the clock might have gotten to him a hair. I think the only trouble you could have got in there is hitting it a little too thick, and that's what happened.
And now he's back to his chair and talking to himself. And Pecelj, who was 4 ahead at 5-1, is inches away there from having that lead cut in half to just a couple of racks. But now he can restore it entirely. Given the way he's been so efficient at taking chances like this so far in the match, it'll be a big surprise Or not soon, marking down 6-2.
He kind of punched it, and that's whenever the ball doesn't respond correctly. Anytime you get into the cue ball to impact on the slick table, it kind of acts like a hydraulic a little bit, kind of like overspins when it hits that cushion, and the top English took and the cue ball didn't roll. And I wonder, I mean, Federer, of course, he's always really genuine on things, and I kind of feel like he didn't see the 5-9. If he does, he gets over on the other side of the table very easily and gets and makes it at a 100%. I think him just getting on top of it is what caused the miss.
Yeah, I agree. And if you didn't see the 5-9, that is a mistake.
Oh my, this is a big miss.
That may be a sign of immaturity there, Jeremy. I don't know if that was or wasn't the right shot. I'm sure hindsight is 20/20. If he puts it down, he looks great. But I think he had a pretty good defensive play to flick the 7 and go 2 rails up behind the 8.
Well, that was definitely there. I mean, the safety side. The one thing about the way he attacked is there were a couple different ways to play it. Because if you play it with speed, right, coming in from that angle, yeah, I didn't understand that a little bit. Coming in from that angle on the 7, very hard to hang the bank. It's either going to go or come out across to the bottom rail. So he kind of played it kind of like a win or lose shot, where I think there was a bit more of a backdoor safety there if he played it with a little different speed.
I fully agree.
Huge shot here.
Absolutely, and it's feeling like probably the biggest rack of the match so far. Pecelj had been let back in, had the chance to go 6-2, but instead it's Fedor Gorst who wins 2 in a row. There's a very different feel to it now. Pecelj leads 5-3. And not surprising that the young man from Serbia has taken a little break.
Wonder if this is a turning point in the match, guys. I mean, that was a very big opportunity for Aleksa.
I think if you were trying to draw up what a turning point looks like, you'd probably devise a rack like that. But of course, as we've seen so often, just because something feels like it's going to be a turning point doesn't mean that it will be.
Well taken.
Yeah, I think the 7-ball bank, not only him shooting at it, but the way he went a little more aggressively, I think had a lot to. It was a little hangover from maybe being a little upset on how he struck the 6-ball. It's easy to say, oh, I made a mistake there, I'm going to overcome it with the next shot.
US Open has been around since 1976. The first 12 years of it, all the winners were from the US. Mike LeBron, representing Puerto Rico, was the first non-US winner in 1988. And since then, the balance of power has really shifted. Whoever wins this today, it'll be the 14th time that a player from outside the United States has won this championship. And as if to underline the point further about how things are changing, this is going to be the 5th year in a row without an American player in the US Open final.
I do think that's going to change going forward. I'm really impressed with some of the youngsters we have coming up. And the more events in the United States that Matchroom puts on, the better it's going to get. I don't count me wrong, but I think there's 10 events, or at least 10 point ranking events next year in the States, 3 of them being majors. That's very, very positive for our kids.
And of those young players then, who do you see as the most likely to step up?
Oh, you put me on the spot.
Well, we saw young
Michael
Martinez yesterday. He was so impressive winning the junior event. Is he the most likely to become a genuine top player?
Well, he has been, and Jeremy will agree with me, he has been for several years now.
Yeah, I mean, Laz is a super solid player. But there's so many. Sam Henderson played here.
Right. Joey Tate,
Landon Hollingsworth, which wasn't here this time, but he's in school, making sure that's all intact. But just like Aleksa Pecelj, it's really hard to put your finger on it, just because when you're young like that,
correct,
you can really turn the corner quickly.
Yeah, you just don't know when they're gonna shoot through.
Yeah,
and it seems like we're witnessing that now, very possibly. I think we've already witnessed it. with the result of the Shaw match yesterday.
Yeah, and, you know, very few can hit the scene winning in any professional level, especially individual sports. You know, Federer won a World 9-ball at a young age. Josh Filler won both the U.S. Open and a World 9-ball at a young age.
Fedor Gorst to break.
But that's pretty
Trailing
rare.
by 5 racks to 3.
Such an eventful 8th rack. It went the way of Gorst. He's back to 2 behind and breaking.
The 1 is down. He's got the kiss he's looking for. Does he get a shot on the blue 2 in the side, or does it run too far? It's going to be perfect. The 3 is straight in. Look at this, Jeremy.
Yeah, 3 balls down. It was a dry break early, and one that carried a lot of concern after the young Serbian put some racks together, but we're 1 rack off of an even split at 5-3. The best it could be is 4-4, and it looks like it's about to get even closer.
Fedor Gorst hasn't run out from the break yet in this match.
Michael, Jeremy's spoken many times about adrenaline, right? And once that adrenaline starts kicking, everything else kind of goes away. Do you think that Federer's going to take hold of this match from this position?
I think after seeing Pecelj's last match, it's very hard to make any predictions, isn't it, the way Shaw was going. But certainly, I think if he gets back to 5-4 and then breaking with the momentum behind him, even though he'd still be a rack behind, you'd probably make him favourite at that stage.
I think it's a real good sign seeing him pocket 3 balls on the break.
Well, sports is just so amazing to me. I mean, with that last mistake on that combination, it kind of felt like I saw more frustration from Federer than I imagined I would see the entire day, or I'm used to ever seeing. But then he got to kind of shake it free because, you know, the return mistake from Pecelj. So, okay, smart shot there, just laying up for the natural angle, just a little light stun above the 9.
Yeah, I thought that was a real smooth play right there. Less cue ball movement, creates less problems.
So how things have shifted here. Only about half an hour ago, Pecelj was running out from the break, rack after rack. Now Gorst has done it for the first time in the match. He'll be breaking in the next with a chance to draw level in this semi-final. Welcome back to this US Open semi-final. Fedor Gorst back to only one behind Jeremy. Is he favourite now with the momentum behind him?
Well, yeah. I mean, he was a little favourite before the match started, I would say, and now he's kind of maybe shaking off a few things. Maybe a little chink in the armor from Pecelj. Not much. Just see what the pool gods give him, and I don't think you're going to see many more mistakes from either player.
Scott, what are your views on this? Pecelj has looked very mentally strong in the last 2 matches, including this one and the quarterfinal last night. He's going to have to bring that to bear if he gets a chance to turn this round.
He is. We saw a slight blunder in the bank that he played, and a good thing for Federer is he's pocketed 3 balls on his last break. Let's see what happens here.
Cue ball. Cue ball. It needs some help. It needs some help.
Yeah, looked for a moment like he might get that help from the 3, but once that had slipped past, he knew what was coming. We were talking earlier about turning points. We've potentially seen about 3 or 4 of them in the last couple of racks.
I think we're going to see 3 or 4 more in this race to 11.
And you can see the real work is from the 3 to the 5 to the 6. Of course, on this equipment, the slick felt, which can always get away from you. It doesn't take much, even if you know how to play it. And then the pockets. I mean, they're not quite as tough as what they played on all week, just because the lights and the conditions are a little more prime overall. But
yeah, he does have some work to do, Jeremy. As you really look at the table, it doesn't look too difficult until you start to really dissect it. The 6 to the 7, like you said, but he's even got a little work from the 7 to the 8.
Yeah, the main thing is don't let it compound. That's why the balls early are so huge, because when you start to get out of line, it's very hard to recover and get totally back. So you start to get a little more out of line as each ball is pocketed, and it just seems to snowball a bit. He's a little on the wrong side of it.
Yeah, and that tells you how steep he was on that last ball, because he got the most out of it, in my opinion, that he could probably get.
Is he going to cheat the pocket here? He'd love to get back where he's at now. Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah, Michael, I don't know that he looked bad in any position in this rack, and looks like he's going to take a 6 to 4 lead, if you ask me.
At times, he's looked machine-like in this match. Just pinpoint position. Never looked in danger of missing anything routine. And this is huge if he takes this rack. He'd lost 3 in a row from a landslide position. He'd been pegged back to almost all square. As you said, there were questions to be answered again in this rack.
Yeah, no one that I've seen so far on this table has broke the balls better. So I mean, getting one on the board, it seems like for Pecelj is usually a bonus because of what's going to come after.
Well, we spoke at the start of the rack about the need for him to bring his newly enhanced mental toughness to the table if he got a chance, and he's had to show that here. This wasn't straightforward, even with ball in hand. But job done. Pecelj has some breathing space again. It's 6-4. And he's past the halfway point as he looks for that target of 11 to go through to the US Open final.
Yeah, and one thing that Federer said in an opening with Carl is he would have liked another hour or 2 sleep. And I had to get up pretty early this morning to do some work, and I saw him at breakfast at probably 7:15.
Yeah.
And so you see a little faster pace around the table at times. One thing with that, you don't see a whole lot of frustration from Federer a whole lot. And you could see it was very obvious on that unlucky scratch in the side.
Yeah, I agree, Jeremy. And Jason Sword, I was speaking to him, that's Federer's camp. They said they were having breakfast at like 7:30 this morning. I understand you want to get up long prior to your match, but how early did he really get up?
Thank you. Rack 11.
I know you said you had some work to do this morning, Jeremy. I'm not sure lounging by the pool with Carl and Hannah counts as work, but we'll let it pass for now.
Oh, Hannah's great, but anything with Carl is work, don't worry.
Fair point. 6-4, Pecelj.
Here's the break we were talking about. Yeah, he's been on point, and I say no one's done it better. He's backed it up with the play, but he had a six-pack and that 6 breaking runs in a row against Ralph Souquet in that 10-1 victory. Okay, he can't really go offensive here, but he's in a good position.
Put him below the pink 4, purple 5, Jeremy.
Yeah, and you know, Federer's great at jumping the ball, so don't think you got to weld him. That you may turn the cue ball loose. Just lay him on the rail behind it and see what Federer comes with.
He might be going the other way. Okay, I like this for sure.
Oh, and he got the 2 all the way across as well. Really good. He would have liked to not give it up that side rail before the side, but I think he was, you know, everyone's always like a little subconsciously worried about Federer's jumping ability. So I know he wanted to get the 2 across to where really the jump wasn't an option.
Gorst has been based here in the US for some time, and already this year he's won 2 of the most established and prestigious events in the States. Derby City Classic at the start of the year, beat Shane Van Boening to win that, and only this month he won Turning Stone, beat the veteran Mika Immonen in the final. This, of course, the most established, prestigious and traditional of all America's tournaments.
Is he trying to clip it, go over by the 8?
Yeah, I think that's what he's got to do. I don't know that he has any room to do otherwise. He's not going to get a rail here, is he? He did get a rail.
Yeah, he was trying to hit that much thinner, create a lot more cue ball speed, have the 2 get to the rail behind the 7.
Very tough to judge, though, on the new cloth, on the slidey cloth.
We've seen players this year get through to finals and even win tournaments who we wouldn't have been talking about before the event began, and it's been a bit out of the blue one way or another. Don't know if we could entirely say that about Pecelj. He's had a lot of good tournaments this year. Last 16 at the World Championship, last 32 in London at the UK Open, and in Germany just last month in the European Open. In the smaller events, he's been getting a lot of good results. Was runner-up in a smaller world ranking event in Zaragoza in April, beaten by Wojciech Szewczyk.
Extension code.
And just last month, a similar event in Bosnia and Herzegovina, he won it. So there's been a lead up to all of this.
Is he looking to take on the bank here and draw into position, or can he run into these balls? What do you think?
Well, I think he can stun between the 6 and 9 to get down for a cut on the 4. May not offer much to get position on the 5. I kind of thought before he shot the 2, he may end up having to bank the 3 cross side for position on the 4.
Right. I think he's banking this, Jeremy, or is he forced drawing into the side? I thought that was a mistake. That was a bad decision, Jeremy.
Well, the thing is you know, he took a long time, right? He took his extension, so obviously it wasn't simple or natural. So maybe you just get into position to play an easy safety of some sort on the pink. These players stay so aggressive, though, and I always say that's what makes them so great.
Yeah, I just felt like he might have been a much better favorite to carry position with the bank, and it looked like it was laying well, but I'm not at the table. They are. And let's carry on. Is he a little flat here?
Yeah, I mean, you could always have used a little angle, but when you're close, you can stun a little bit more, and you're not so worried because you're so accurate. You don't have to hit it very hard, and you'll get a ton of movement. So don't mind that overall, especially he's very comfortable with that shot he just played on the 6 versus I like a hair more angle to roll into position more.
But he made it look easy, Jeremy.
Yeah, I was going to say it earlier. That's the beauty in 9-ball pool. You know, other sports you see different techniques because, you know, they're playing on such a broad surface and so many things involved. But in pool, we're just on a 9-foot table and still so many different ways to do things.
And you see it all the time.
Yeah,
Michael, Fedor Gorst about to take this game and get to 5. Can he tie it up? in the following rack.
Sometimes you get to around this stage in a match and it just feels in every way like a match that's going to go the full distance. Gorst is back to only one behind. He was handed a little bit of a gift there. He received it gratefully. 6-5. Second semi-final coming up a bit later on. That's two players who've done well in this US Open in the past. That's Lucius Yap, who was runner-up here in Atlantic City to Carlo Biado 2 years ago. And his opponent, Ko Ping Chung, was one rack away from getting to the final here last year. Wouldn't it be remarkable if two players from the same family winning the World Masters and the US Open, two of the oldest and most prestigious titles in the sport, in the same year. Ko Ping won the Masters in Brentwood back in May. And all three brothers are here. Great moment at the end of that quarter-final last night when all three of them were together in the arena.
Yeah, those, no matter the combination of who's watching, they're there for their family, and they really pay attention to everything. There's a lot of communication about some techniques and decisions and whatnot from match to match. It's got to be a blessing to have those two other great players, no matter the combination.
Fedor Gorst to break, trailing by
Since
6 racks
falling
to 5.
2-1 down, Gorst has been behind all the way. If he wins this rack, that changes.
Yeah, Michael, at one point he was trailing 4-1.
5-1.
5-1, so
yeah.
Is he going to come away with a shot here? Does he have the gap?
Can't tell from his expression, but I think good chance there is a gap. And this is what we talked about in the opening. Hannah asked Carl and I different points about what things you need to think about, or maybe important things in these types of matches, and it certainly has come up now after a couple big mistakes from Fedor to open the door. Pecelj didn't capitalize, and how's he going to respond when given another chance?
Agreed, Jeremy, and I think this is the time you have to put this ball down if you can see it. He knows that. You see the pink 4 laying up in front of the top right corner pocket. Just got to watch.
A little drag shot, maybe? Yeah.
That's what he's done. Watch the cue ball.
Who knows how important those couple of inches by which that stayed out of the side pocket could turn out to be at the end of this.
And a nice shot on the 2. And thing that looks like to me, when Fedor's breaking well, they're really spreading nicely. Pecelj, of course, broke well earlier, but I think so far has had the tougher layouts of the two.
Absolutely agree, Jeremy, and that's something I did notice, is I felt like he had some clusters that he constantly had to deal with when Fedor's breaking the balls. They're opening up.
Yeah, we'll see how this moves on, but should have a tie match here. Just 4 more strikes at the cue ball. Nothing major here. You could fall underneath it. Most would come above it using the bottom cushion. He's going to stay underneath. And there is no fault there. It's just when you're close to the ball, that's when preference really is a factor.
And are you talking about this shot here? Do you go one rail out or do you draw up? It's just preference, right?
Yeah, I mean that one's pretty standard. I mean, that's more percentage. It kind of wanted to go that way.
Right.
The seats, as you saw, starting to fill up now. As the fans here in Atlantic City rouse themselves from the effects of last night's entertainment. It looks as though they're coming here to see a close finish. Fedor Gorst lost 5 racks in a row earlier on. He's won 5 out of 6 since. It's a race to 5 from here for a place in the US Open final. Great champions step it up when they most need to. That's what Fedor Gorst is doing here. Another break and run. His second of the match to draw him level. That's 6-all. He was at one stage 5-1 down to Aleksa Pecelj of Serbia. Gorst, a very firm favourite now.
A few more errors there on the left side for Gorst from what I saw. Don't know that that's going to show at this point, being all knotted up at 6.
All the momentum with Gorst at this stage, but I'd say Pecelj has done a huge amount wrong, and we saw against Jason Shaw when he came from 6-2 down, won 8 of the next 9 racks for victory in the quarter-final last night. And this mental toughness we keep talking about is very real, something that he's really improved on over the last year or two.
Sorry about that, Michael. Jeremy, I have a question. Do you think this is this the time where we really see what Aleksa's made of or not?
Well, I think we've already seen that yesterday. I mean, I think his progression through the game has been incredible. Sometimes unnoticed because there's so many great players and so many names to talk about. But
Thank you.
I think given the opportunity, he's going to finish. It's just a matter, you know, I kind of feel like from here, it's going to be a lot of big blows thrown at each other. You know, like I really feel like they're going to play super solid, both of them.
Feels like it's been an epic story already, and only really just past halfway potentially in the match. 6-all.
Little more speed on that one as well.
Yeah, he was real quick.
Yeah, and maybe a few of those little things changing. Meaning a little more didn't make one. A little more speed. Didn't give up a shot.
They say when the one comes short of the side, you catch it a hair thin. I don't know if that's the case, but noting the cue ball being a bit lower, that might have been the case.
I think that's the hard thing about the cut break and why, you know, one day you feel like, oh, okay, I got it. It's good. We're good. And then it'll baffle you the next because there are several little things that make a difference. Usually when you get quick, just like a draw stroke, your tip position comes up. So you hit a little more of a stun, which I think can make the one come out all kinds of different ways. So, you know, I think another reason why it's such a great rule is, of course, the break's going to be a big part of the game, but at least there's a lot of variance, like maybe the driver and, you know, when you're playing golf.
Makes a lot of sense.
All right, he's got attack here. I mean, there's enough angle to come 2 rails and not worry about the 9 to try and get behind those 4 balls on the lower left side of your table.
I think it's touchy, Jeremy.
And the key here is don't let up. The one's going to come out to the middle-ish of the table, but man, these guys are supposed to hit this mark. You know, you see how he put some speed in it? That way the ball would lengthen off the second cushion.
Oh, he's hit it like a professional.
And that's why not a lot of places to push out to. It's always very demanding, but that's why Pecelj tried to put the 7 on the side rail to cover the 2 a little bit. Anytime you're pushing out, especially at this level, you have the worst of it. So it's like any other game. You want to lengthen the game as much as you can.
Going really high here, Michael.
Yeah, he caught it thin. He wasn't trying to make that, I don't think. I think he was trying to bank it a couple rails around towards that congestion, holding the cue ball on the top rail.
Fedor Gorst won the opening rack in this match, and that remains the only time he's been in front of us. Could be back there in a few minutes from now.
Does he try and go into the 2 here?
I like that. I think good things can happen, and that's what he's done.
Well, such a open center of the table, you know, you don't expect. You may not draw a position. It could get funny, but you don't expect to get snookered.
He's got a little bit of an unfortunate angle here. I think he's okay. At worst, he might be able to go into the purple 5, but it looks like to me he wants to come below everything.
I think he's kind of gotta a little bit. You can see that's a great overhead shot. You may be able to get into the 8. I don't think the 5's an option.
Yeah, I agree.
Now he went into the 5 that way. That'll do. Okay, lots going on in this rack. He's fairly light on the angle on the 3. Love to play the 4 in the same pocket. But then he's got concern, you know, with a 5 ball that he kind of bumped a little more out of position there. So
Yeah, I agree. This is a big shot in the match. Definitely the game.
oh, he's going all the way to the top rail. Oh my.
He's caught it fat, real fat with that inside English.
Well, normally, just like outside, what happens is when you let up, you overthrow the ball. Inside, when you let up, you hit it thick. And so it's hard to tell the let up there because there was some speed on the shot. But he kind of pulled the backswing back a little quick to me. Made me feel like there may have been a little decel right there at impact. So there's been 2 of these already where he really should have capitalized off a huge Fedor Gorst mistake. Now's the 3rd one.
Yeah, and Fedor's opened the door again.
Uh-oh.
Better settle.
Yeah. And he's played so smart.
Yes, you do.
I don't feel like he was trying to push it and get too good there. I just don't feel that. It just maybe kind of, you know,
Just
went
got
off
away
in his
from
hand
him.
a little bit, yeah.
Sure. Yeah, he has fumbled a couple
Extension,
times though,
please.
Jeremy. Since that
this.
bank, he's fumbled.
He's going to jump it with the bridge. You don't see this very often.
I don't know that he can do it.
Yeah, we're not going to see it now either. I think he thought better of it. That would have been very ambitious, especially with the tension and the pressure rising.
He's so forced to want to jump this guy's. I mean, maybe the kick is what he has to do.
Yeah, the 5 goes by the 7 on the kick.
Yeah.
You get a roll. It's close.
I think Fedor can make this ball.
Yeah. So it's a funny match on the Pecelj side of things. It was like no mistake to get things started when he ran a bunch of racks. But following a mistake is where he struggled. Meaning following a Fedor mistake is where he struggled.
Both players feeling it right now, if you'll say.
Well, we always talk about shifts in momentum, and we see them in terms of racks won and lost, but it's hard to think of a big match we've seen recently where there have been so many changes in momentum within a rack, as we've seen here.
I agree, Michael. I haven't seen it real often in this event. You'll usually see strings of 2, 3, 4 racks from one player at a time, but the momentum swings here have been pretty dramatic.
I think whatever happens, both players will be able to point to several racks during the match that they might well have won but ended up losing. Pecelj looks certainly be able to add this rack to his list.
I still go back to that interview about that extra hour or 2 sleep for Fedor, and you know, now he's set into the match. It shouldn't be a problem, but you know, he's giving a lot of energy into this match, and of course that's not a bother, but he's got to win 2 today. He's going to take home the US Open.
So for the first time since it was 1-0, Fedor Gorst is in the lead. It's now 7-6. He needs 4 more to get through to that final. Well, we were saying earlier on in the match about the need for Pecelj to bring that mental toughness he's been working on, and he did do it at times, but signs that maybe it's starting to slip a bit now.
Well, I mean, not to be funny, but maybe he plays better from behind. I mean, so we've seen it now twice, 2 days. I mean, that's, of course, we always talk about it's the hardest thing is to get the first game and the last.
Well, that's the jump shot that he talked himself into playing on the 5, and as a result of missing it, Gorst played this shot. And really, once he'd done that, left himself the 6 into the side pocket.
Yeah, Michael, and I just don't know, and Jeremy, I just don't know if the jump shot, it seemed like he was just set on shooting the jump shot. And he could have had a lot of good things happen kicking at that ball. He was very close to it.
Yeah, well, I felt like he would have threatened the pocket kicking at it. He had the 7 over there as well, making a little bit of a friendlier pocket, a little bigger.
Thank you.
For me,
Track 14.
no doubt the kick was
Fedor
the
Gorst
shot,
to
but
break.
I don't jump like they
Leading by
do.
7 racks
So
to 6.
Fedor Gorst has now won 6 of the last 7 racks.
Okay, he's got the 1 down, he's got a kiss, he's got a shot on the 2, guys.
this is the fear of, not taking advantage. Now, this is the fear I kind of felt from Fedor earlier, whenever Pecelj was at the breaking end so often.
It just seems like the spread is a little bit better after his break. I don't know if that has to do with cue ball positioning. I'm really not sure about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you're further corner of the box, right, you're getting more of the mass of the cue ball onto the 1, which is going to put a little more power throughout the rack.
Well, with the possible exception of rack 9, where he potted the 3 balls off the break. This is probably the nicest they've finished for him in the whole match.
I agree, Michael, and he has to finish here to make this go forward without any mishaps. I think it really drives home a message for Pecelj if Fedor gets out here.
Showed his qualities as a finisher of matches against Carlo Biado in one of the stand-up matches of yesterday. Had fallen behind in that and won 6 of the next 8 racks. It's turning into a similar story today.
Well, I don't know if you can tell, but looks much more awake to me now. Not saying he looked groggy or anything, but just, of course, the adrenaline and, he like all the greats, smell blood. And I think it's a fair assessment at the moment.
Yeah, I can see it, Jeremy. I was actually going to allude to the same thing.
As I said at the end of the previous rack, he did have the lead earlier at 1-0. One thing he hasn't had at any stage of this semi-final is a lead of more than a single rack. This would be a very significant time to do so.
Yeah, it's amazing how often just 1 inch makes a difference. Falling a little off angle here, so he's going to have to work a little harder going to the short side of the 7. Not saying it's a problem, but
it's a very good call, Jeremy, and I do agree. Makes a difference.
and kind of seems he's in Fedor's rhythm again. We talked about it at the beginning. I think it was you, Scott, brought it up. He's playing a little fast, it seemed like, at first. Maybe it was you, Michael, but definitely seems more like the Fedor rhythm. It's really right in the middle.
It is right in the middle.
So again, multiple balls down off the break.
Extension, please.
And again, it's almost certainly going to be a break and run. Just feels like a totally different match now, doesn't it? He hasn't quite reached the levels of domination that Pecelj was enjoying earlier in the match. But what matters is he's firmly in control now. 8-6.
Well, guys, I guess that's kind of what I was alluding to with Pecel's mindset at the moment. I know he hasn't been in this position on this stage a number of times, right? So each match gets heavier for him. I'm just curious what's going through his mind. Yeah, and how do you think he comes back from where he is, Jeremy? He's beat Shaw. He was down 6 games to 2. I leave the room and come back. He beats him 10-7. What's he got to do?
Well, I mean, you first got to get a shot. I mean, that's the biggest problem right now is Fedor Gorst is at the table.
Fedor Gorst to break, leading by 8 racks to 6.
And, you know, I think he's processing as best he can at the moment. But I think more than anything what happens is you get real eager watching what your opponent's doing, waiting to get that chance. So.
Well, that's it. That's what he's got to do, isn't it? Just hope that something is thrown his way, a scratch off the break, whatever. And then when it does come, you really won't be able to afford not to capitalize.
I think that opportunity is now, Michael. He's at least going to get an opportunity at the table. I don't believe that Fedor can do anything besides push.
Now, Fedor can really take advantage of a very difficult 7 ball. I'm not so sure he can move the 6 comfortably on the push out. But if you can put the 6 on the other end of the table, it makes it difficult to get on that 7. Either that or maybe move the 8. Maybe move the 8, like bank the 8 to the middle of the bottom rail there and leave that long 2.
I think I like the 8 more just because I don't know where I could cover the 6.
Yeah, and control the cue ball. So I like bumping the 8 to the middle of this rail and leaving them long and tough. That way, whoever gets the 7 is going to have a difficult play to get to the 8. Now, maybe he was worried about losing the cue ball a little bit doing so.
Yeah, I think he was more concerned about the cue ball for sure, or that's clearly obvious. I don't think there's a problem with this, but
he's partially jacked up.
I don't know that I would even shoot this right now, but I would think about it if I was Aleksa.
I'll tell you one thing you certainly can't do, whether it's offense or defense, you cannot pass this back. You have to attack. You have to take this on. Like I said, whether it's offense or defense. Good thing is he can put a little speed on it.
Did he get away with it?
Get a big roll.
Getting the applause, but it's a huge roll for him.
And even though that's a big roll, I think if I'm Fedor, I kind of like what I'm seeing from Aleksa.
Yeah.
In
terms of body language as much as anything?
That, and I mean, his execution has it's dropped. It's definitely dropped in the last few games.
I would feel and see the tension in his cueing arm at times. Well, maybe it wasn't such a big roll after all.
Yeah, I don't know if the 3 passes the 7. I think it does, but if it doesn't, you're looking at one of the best bankers in the game. So he won't pass and play some type of defense just in case the 3 doesn't pass the 7.
And then we go back to the brown 7, like you said, Jeremy. That could pose a problem towards the end of this rack, no matter what.
It's actually a good thing for Fedor now that the 8 is over the pocket. The 7's going to be a demanding ball, but if you can fall a little straighter on it, of course it gets a little easier. Looking at what looks like just a portion of the pocket for the 3. May actually graze the 7 and still make the 3. It's not something you would plan from this angle, but it may happen.
Couldn't hit that any better.
Looks like he's dead straight on the pink. So if he is, he may not be able to get so close to the 7 when he shoots the 6.
Going back to what you said, Jeremy, now the 8 does help Fedor.
And as you could tell here, he had to take on some angle on this green 6. So, you know, drawing up tidy close to the 7, that's not going to happen.
And going back and forth could be real difficult with this slick cloth. The cue ball could definitely kill at some point.
Yeah, I don't think it would get there. I mean, it could, and maybe that's what he's doing. Looks like that's what, yeah, he's got more angle than I thought. But watch it, hugs.
Oh, he did as well as he could there, Jeremy.
Yeah, he's good.
Much tougher than it looked, that shot.
Always an odd shot. Once you learn it, right, you actually end up hitting it more full than you think. It's kind of makes it hug that rail.
Yeah, I would say this is very difficult.
Doesn't feel as though Pecelj has been swept away as such here. He is getting to the table. He is getting chances to do something about what's happening. But ultimately, it's more a case of the tide just gently closing in on his chances in this match. He's going to need a massive turnaround now because Pecelj now trails by 3. Fedor Gorst 2 away from a place in the final. Fedor Gorst trailed 5. Flying proudly above the arena here at Harrah's in Atlantic City, home to the US Open for the 3rd year in a row. But as in the previous 2, the American contingent slipped away much earlier than they might have hoped. Skylar Woodward was the last hope of a home win. He went out in the last 16. Fedor Gorst, based in the US these days, a couple of racks away, it seems, from the US Open final. Still time for Aleksa Pecelj to come back into it, but he's got to rediscover the form of earlier in the match, JJ, and it's not looking good for him at the moment in that sense.
No, and it's been a little snowball effect,
Rack
2 different
16,
directions,
Fedor
right?
Gorst to break, leading by 9 racks to 6.
One thing I've noticed, guys, is the confidence in Fedor just seems to keep building. He looks more comfortable around the table. His tempo looks good. And I just feel like he's here to stay right now.
Well, he's definitely heated up. You know, it's not as much concern at the moment, more than just play. And that's, you know, of course, the ultimate goal and the mindset you want. And it's hard to get, especially what Aleksa was doing earlier and the complexion of the match. But we all see that has certainly changed.
Well, his big pal on the tour is Skylar Woodward. I believe they live in the same part of the country, actually, and that's been a real feature with Woodward throughout this year. The end of a match seems to bring out the best in him. Talked earlier about Gorst being a great finisher of matches. He showed it against Carlo Biado yesterday. From 6-4 down, he's doing similar today.
Yeah, I don't know if this blue 2's cuttable, but I think he will go offensive. He can bank it and draw behind the 3.
I think it's cuttable, Jeremy. I like the bank, actually, now that you bring it up. I do think it's real thin. I think it's
Attention,
cuttable.
please.
I know the cue ball's going up towards the 3. Either way he chooses to play it. But he might lose the cue ball if he tries to cut it. I think he's going to cut at it, Jeremy.
Yeah, he keeps looking the 2 to the pocket. He has a very obvious way he kind of sizes up bank shots. I think that's what he's doing now. I think he's decided maybe the bank. Well, this is very cuttable, actually. So.
Yeah, it is cuttable.
But I don't know. I still feel like he's banking it.
Well, you felt right.
Yeah, and get behind the 3, right? Because again, at that speed, you're not. It's going to slide a little. So it's not the type that hangs really. It either goes or gets away from the pocket. Usually, anyways.
Definitely hit that ball with confidence too. There was no wavering on whether it was going or not.
It's process is everything, routine, and they all connect. And what Fedor does with that is, you know, he kind of figures out what his gut's telling him when he looks at 2 different options for a little bit, massages the clock a little for a big decision on the bank on the 2.
And when you talk about routine and fundamentals, I think Fedor is probably the best out there at it.
The days of reeling off consecutive break-and runs and leading the match 5-1 seem a long time ago now. Everything was going in his direction at that time, and as I was saying, it's just slowly, gently, gradually slipped away. The way this is heading now, every possibility may not have any further chance to impact on this semi-final, because these balls are to take Gorst to the hill.
Yeah, and the beauty of 9-ball pool, well, there's so much to it really, but one of the beauties is so many different ways matches can go down, and one of the unique things I've seen here is Aleksa really not closing the door after a Fedor mistake. You know,
Right, Jeremy.
that's usually when you do close the door after the Fedor mistake, especially as well as he's played so far, that being Aleksa.
And that's going to be the frustrating thing if he loses, isn't it? It's not as if from 5-1 up he just got swept away by Gorst playing at his very, very best. The chances have been there for him to build on that.
No, that's absolutely right, Michael. He had, I think, 3 or 4 opportunities after some blunders mid-match to where he could really take off, and it just didn't seem to happen for him.
I'll tell you, though, I think he still believes. He's just, and he's trying to kind of wheel his way to a shot with that belief.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess his last big hope is that the balls don't fall kindly for Gorst off his break, which is coming up in a moment on the hill. Because this one is done now. It's half a dozen racks in a row for Fedor Gorst.
We got a full house. Fedor to pocket this 9 and get on the hill.
Aleksa Pecelj is going to have to win 5 racks in a row to keep this US Open dream alive. Fedor Gorst looking very comfortable. It's 10-6. Well, you think back to this time last year, the first semi-final, and FSR was 10-6 up on Carlo Biado. That one ended up going the distance. Yes, FSR did win the final rack, but things like that show that in these big matches, one shot can turn it all around.
Yeah, and you know, time at the table means a little bit, but I really feel Federer's fully engaged in the match, and I feel like Aleksa's doing all he can mentally, but just hasn't been there physically engaged in the last probably 45 minutes.
Gorst has been world champion before. He won that as a teenager. But he knows all about the history of this US Open, which goes back much further, all the way to 1976, almost half a century now. How will he be feeling about the prospect of being one rack away from getting through to the final of this historic event, JJ?
Well, it's hard to ignore, of course, but that's why I mentioned a moment ago, he's heated up. He's engaged in what he's doing. But still, again, hard to not recognize where you're at. If he breaks and gets a shot here, he knows it's in his hands to get to the U.S. Open final. And he does have a shot. We'll see how he elects to play
covered it up, Jeremy.
Yeah, but I mean, he can see the blue too, though. I mean, it's not rolling out or anything like that. And I'll tell you, if he likes this combination, don't think he wouldn't shoot it. It's not laying bad to the pocket at all, even though not easy.
Yeah, and these tight pockets combinations have proven this week to be difficult at best. It isn't laying bad, as you say, Jeremy. I just wonder what the 2 would do. Does he see something better?
Well, he's going to play safe for sure, it looks like to me. He's got options. He can clip the 2 lightly. He can bring the 2 down to the rail behind the 8 and bring the cue ball behind the pink and the 8. He can run the cue ball off the 2, which is probably what he does, because that's real secure, meaning you're not giving up a jump. Nothing's leaking out, even if you let him see a little piece.
This is going to turn out pretty nice, I think.
And totally by design, going between the 3-6. Remind me of SVB there, type of safety he plays.
Well, at least Pecelj is getting to the table. He's getting a chance to impact on this rack in some way. So what shot would you play, Scott, to do that?
Well, Michael, it's funny you say that. Pecelj had an opportunity like this against Jason, I believe, when he was down 6-2. He had to jump a ball, and he played like a 2-rail safety, sucking the cue ball up behind another ball. I don't know what he plays here, but he looked at the 8, so he might be playing a jump carom.
Watch out for a little action on the 9 as well, just in case he hits it heavy.
Certainly plenty of action on the 9, not quite enough, but it's okay, the outcome.
We might see more action on the 9 here if he comes in behind this.
Ironically enough, this is almost a similar result when he was trailing 6-2 against Shaw.
Yeah, I think a pretty smart shot. I think he ignored the kiss shot on the 8, knowing that's just letting everything go. Just using the 8, trying to hold the cue ball and play a percentage that, you know, if he leaves a shot, it's going to be difficult.
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
You know, Federer, I don't think he can do anything but have the 2 go into the 9.
I feel like he's got to swerve this ball, and he does. And this is very difficult because of the distance on the green 6. He's missed the 9.
The 2's going to come up. He's got a shot.
Okay, so this is it. This is what we were talking about. A clear chance for Pecelj. Yes, there's work to do here, but he's got a shot at the 2. If you want to pull off a miracle, like coming from 10-6 down to win a race to 11 in the US Open semi-final, these are the sort of situations you have to turn in your favor.
Tricky business here. He may have to just hit this light and try and creep up the table to get a shot at the 3. Otherwise, this could get away. Yeah, that's what I was worried about, hitting it with speed. You just don't know how it's going to react. You can be Efren Reyes on the slip table and just not exactly know, because It only takes a little difference hitting the 8 a little thicker, a little thinner. I think I hit that a little light trying to catch a little piece of the 8 and just give me something on the 3.
Guarantee yourself something. Absolutely. I fully agree there, Jeremy.
Okay, Fedor Gorst, this is going to open up.
It is.
And now he definitely knows. But the difference is when you know it and you've done it, you kind of, enjoy this moment a little more. I don't think enjoy is the right word.
Embrace.
Exactly, embrace it, yeah. But you embrace it with your work. You don't embrace it just saying, okay, that's nice and all. You get back to business.
Oh, yeah, he's focused to the tilt here.
One shot, really.
Fedor Gorst cut a very frustrated figure earlier on in the match. Wasn't getting much of a look in, and even when he was, things weren't going his way. He was slumping back to his chair, talking to himself. As we've been saying, he hasn't exactly blown away Pecelj. He's done what he's needed to do, and he's done it efficiently.
I would
say
keep
that going for another 4 shots.
I would say
through to
right.
the final.
I apologize, Michael. I'd say you're 100% right. Wouldn't you say that this is the biggest match of his career so far, guys?
Well, apart from anything else, we talk about, is the US Open the biggest? Is the World Championship the biggest? You answer that question by winning both of them. And that's the prize on offer for him later today, if he can get this finished here. Aleksa Pecelj has had a wonderful week, probably the best of his career so far. He's played 9 matches to get to this stage. Had to win 3 on the loser's side just to make single elimination. And the great thing for him is it hasn't just been out of the blue. As I was saying earlier, he's had a good year. He's climbed the rankings. All the indications are that he'll continue to do so. Made himself firm contender going to Hanoi for a Mosconi Cup place. That's all for another day, though, because this moment belongs to Fedor Gorst. He was 5-1 down in this US Open semi-final, but now he's ready to enjoy the moment, because by winning 10 of the next 11 racks, Fedor Gorst has seen off Aleksa Pecelj by 11 racks to 6. He'll be back in this arena later today to play for the US Open title.